Hi BookTube, it's Amy. I thought I would sit down and film a little bit of a video about the book that I finished last night, and that is Dorothy Whipple's novel, Someone at a Distance. So I read this in a Persephone Classics edition that I picked up here in Ottawa at Black Squirrel Books the other weekend, but the novel itself was originally published in 1968. And I do believe it's considered a bit of a classic. I hadn't heard of it before, and I'm not familiar with Dorothy Whipple as an author, but I do understand that she's written several books, and I have to say I quite enjoyed this one. So the novel itself, Someone at a Distance, is really about the breakdown of a family, of the North family, but also about a young woman, Louise, who is referred to throughout this novel as the French girl or the French woman by the North family. It's about her attempts to carve out a place for herself in the world and to find happiness, really, which she essentially fails to do throughout this novel. Despite trying very, very hard and wreaking havoc on other people's lives, she doesn't really end the novel any more loved or more in place than she did at the beginning. In fact, at the end of the novel, she is less grounded in a life anywhere. At the end of the novel, she is cut off from the life in France that she had at the start of the novel, this life that she thought was so boring and so intolerable. So at the beginning of the novel, Louise posts an ad in the English papers. She wants to go across the channel to England and live with an English family for a 3-month period. And Mrs. North, an old lady who is widowed and living alone, answers her ad and asks her to come across and stay with her as her companion so that she can practice speaking French. And so off Louise goes, a little bit to the bewilderment of her parents. Her parents don't know that she is fleeing a failed love affair. The man that she was in love with is engaged to marry another wealthier woman. And so we see for the first time Louise realizing here that not having money can really be a problem. We get the sense that she was in love with Paul and she didn't think about asking for any gifts at all. She was just in love with Paul and she thought that one day they would marry, but of course Paul was expected to marry someone wealthier, and he took that path, much to his regret, because we also get the sense that he was a little bit in love with Louise as well. But regardless of the feelings they had for each other, he is marrying someone else and she is fleeing to England to get away from everything that's happening in society, because she doesn't want to be around for the wedding. She doesn't want to be around for any potential children that Paul might have with this other woman. And so off she goes. She's pretty unhappy to be in England, but Mrs. North takes a real liking to her, and despite the fact that she behaves very coldly to the rest of the North family, Mrs. North is a little bit in love with her, in a platonic way, of course. She sees Louise as a bit of a daughter, the daughter she never had. In fact, she appreciates Louise more than her own daughter-in-law, Ellen, who lives nearby with her son Avery. And Louise realizes the advantages that come with living the North family lifestyle. And so she sets out to carve herself a place within this family one way or another, regardless of the effects that it has on the other members of the North family. What I really liked about this novel and what I found interesting was that despite Louise's coldness and her careful calculation to essentially destroy other people's lives, she comes across as a character that we can root for. She is likable. I sympathized with her, although perhaps it's just a reflection on my own character, and perhaps Dorothy Whipple didn't really intend for us to sympathize with Louise to such an extent, but Louise is written in such a way that there are points where we can understand her behavior, we can understand why she does what she does, and in a way we can sympathize with her. If she is going after money, it's because she's realized that not having money makes for a miserable existence. If she is clutching on to things to stay a part of the North family, it's because she realizes if she returns to France, she really has no choice but to marry this local man who has made an offer to her parents and who she really doesn't want to marry because she won't be satisfied. She will be bored. She doesn't love him. She feels that he's beneath her. And in a way, it's possible to root for her in this novel. On the other hand, I think the character that perhaps Dorothy Whipple wanted us to identify with and wanted us to root for is Mrs. North's daughter-in-law, Ellen, who is very much the picture of the dutiful wife. She is almost saint-like and angelic here. She can do no wrong. She always believes her husband. She always loves her husband. She wants to do what's best for her children, even when she realizes that she really dislikes Louise. She remains the dutiful wife and dutiful hostess. And even in the face of betrayal, she behaves in a way that is very much the dutiful wife, almost to her detriment. In fact, I think to her detriment. The way this novel ends, I think Whipple wanted it to be, a hopeful ending. The idea that somewhere in the distant future, everything will be all right for Ellen and the North family. But from my perspective, this was a bit of a depressing ending because Ellen is unable to do what is perhaps best for herself. She's unable to stick up for herself. She is very much a pushover, and whatever she does in the future in this train that's set out for her, I think she's going to end up harmed again. She's going to end up very unhappy in this waiting game that she set out for herself. And on the other hand, I mean, Louise, even though she set out as the bad woman, as the bad guy here, Louise was only the catalyst that set off this chain of events in the North family. She didn't force anyone to do anything. She was simply there, and whatever the other members of the North family did, that's on them, I think. So overall, I really enjoyed this novel, and it's something that I would highly recommend. I am going to be searching out more Dorothy Whipple. I do believe there's more out there by her, so I will be looking for that.